Once upon a time in the vibrant city of Lagos, Nigeria, there lived a taxi driver named Edward. Clad in a worn-out shirt with a taxi emblem stitched on the pocket, he woke up each day with the sunrise, eager to embrace the bustling life of the streets. His taxi was more than just a vehicle, it was a vessel of stories and experiences, each passenger adding a chapter to his life. Edward was known for his warm smile and friendly demeanor, always ready to strike a conversation with those who climbed into his rear seat. He had a knack for making people feel at ease, often sharing laughter with strangers, which turned them into friends if only for a fleeting moment. Every day was an adventure as he navigated the bustling traffic, taking people to work, school, and appointments. Yet, in the back of his mind, Edward often contemplated his own story, wondering where his life. One day, as he waited at a busy street corner, he noticed a woman standing alone. She was tall and graceful, dressed in a flowing white dress that seemed to ripple in the warm breeze, as if she were draped in sunlight itself. Her long hair, dark as the midnight sky, cascaded down her shoulders, framing her face which exuded an ethereal beauty. Though her presence was captivating, there was something haunting about her expression, a hint of sorrow that tugged at Edward's heart. Intrigued, he waved her over. "Where to?" he asked, turning to look at her in the rearview mirror as she settled into the back seat. Her deep, sorrowful eyes met his, and for a moment, time stood still. "Take me to the old cemetery," she replied softly, her voice resonating with a melodic tone that sent chills down his spine. "Cemetery?" He was surprised, but he didn't say a word. A sense of foreboding washed over Edward, but he did not question her request. He nodded and began to drive, navigating through the ever-changing landscape of Lagos. As they moved along the bustling streets, the atmosphere around them began to shift. The vibrant sounds of honking horns and street vendors faded into an eerie silence. The sky darkened slightly, and a heavy weight settled in the air. Edward became scared at some point, and he kept looking at her from the mirror. The woman, who introduced herself as Clara, sat quietly in the back seat, her gaze fixed on the landscape outside. Edward stole nervous glances at her, attempting to discern the emotions that swirled behind her enigmatic eyes. There was an unsettling tranquility about her, an aura that fascinated and frightened him at once. Clenching the steering wheel, he swallowed hard, his curiosity overshadowing his fear. He kept praying in his mind because he couldn't understand how he was feeling again. "Why the cemetery?" Edward finally ventured, breaking the silence. Clara paused before answering, her voice distant as though she were recalling a long-forgotten memory. "I need to visit my grave. I have a story that needs to be told." "Your grave?" At this point his fears grow. He couldn't look at Clara nor say a word. He kept driving in fear. "Don't be afraid, Edward, the first won't hurt you." "You know my name," says Edward. "I know everything I want to know," says Clara. Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Edward's heart raced, caught between skepticism and intrigue. Did she speak of death so casually? The notion of a ghostly encounter sent shivers down his spine, yet he felt an inexplicable connection to her. It was as if she had reached into the depths of his soul. "God save me, I have wronged no one," Edward said to himself. "Why are you so scared of the unknown, ha ha ha?" Clara read his mind and laughed again, ha 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 ha. As they neared the cemetery, Clara began to share her life story. She spoke of her childhood, a time marked by joy, laughter, and dreams. Vivid descriptions of her family filled the air, painting a picture of warmth and love. She reminisced about her passion for art, how she would spend hours creating beautiful paintings that brought her immense satisfaction. Edward listened intently, captivated by the enthusiasm in her voice. Life was beautiful and smooth, with great dreams and visions. "Art was my escape," Clara confessed. "It allowed me to express the feelings that words could not convey. My heart soared with each brushstroke, and that's how I found love, through my art." She told him tales of her first love, a fellow artist named Samuel, who shared her penchant for creativity. Their relationship was a beautiful dance of inspiration and companionship, two souls intertwined by their passion. We were in love with each other so much that we couldn't stay apart. She smiled. However, the joy of her narrative soon took a dark turn. Clara's voice quivered as she recounted the tragic event that shattered her world. Samuel had succumbed to a terrible accident, leaving her heartbroken and alone. His death marked the beginning of her descent into despair. She spoke of the emptiness that engulfed her, of the days spent in a haze of grief and loss. I thought I could never find joy again, she admitted, tears streaming down her cheeks. But I discovered that art was still there, waiting for me to return. Edward felt a lump form in his throat as he witnessed her pain. It was evident that Clara's spirit was wounded, yet her resilience shone through. As they approached the cemetery gates, Edward parked the taxi, his heart pounding. The old cemetery loomed before him, its wrought iron fence entwined with vines and the scattered shadows of ancient trees. Clara pointed toward a newly tended grave adorned with fresh flowers. "That's my final resting place," she whispered, her voice carrying a weight of acceptance. "But I can't move on until people know my story." With a mix of fear and compassion, Edward agreed to help her. He could sense the urgency in her plea, a calling to share her pain, love, and the loss that had marked her existence. He took out his phone and pressed record, ready to help her voice reach the world, bridging the gap between the living and the dead. Clara began narrating her story with a fervor that transformed the air around them. She spoke of her art, how it became both her lifeline and her curse. She poured her heart into her paintings, each canvas a reflection of her agony and devotion. "But even through the heartache, I learned to embrace the beauty of life, the fleeting moments that make it worthwhile," she said, her voice rising like a crescendo. Edward could hardly contain his emotions as Clara's story unfolded. She described the love she shared with Samuel, how they influenced each other's work, driving one another to greater heights. Their passion was palpable, a beautiful whirlwind that ignited not just their creative souls but also a shared dream of changing the world through art. Their love story was not without its challenges, and Clara candidly spoke of the struggles they faced. Jealousy, insecurity, and the pressures of being artists in a harsh world tested their bond. Yet, through it all, they found solace and strength in one another. Clara's voice trembled as she recounted the moment Samuel proposed, how he had created a breathtaking painting as a symbol of his love. But love, Clara learned, could be as fragile as a delicate brushstroke. The accident that took Samuel away was sudden and devastating. She described the phone call that changed her life forever, her world crumbling at the sound of the words she wished she'd never heard. With tears in her eyes, Clara recounted how she had fought against the tide of despair. She poured her grief into her art, struggling to find the light amidst the darkness. The gallery exhibitions that once filled her with pride became a painful reminder of what she had lost. "For a long time, I thought I would never paint again," she admitted. "But slowly, the colors returned to my life." As she spoke, Edward could feel the raw emotion etched into her words. He watched the pain and longing reflected in her eyes and wished he could ease her sorrow. But he also felt a sense of hope, the way she had turned her heartbreak into strength, the realization that pain can birth beauty. Finally, Clara shared how she came to accept her fate. "I realized that life is too short to dwell on what is lost. It is about embracing the moments we have and the love we share. Even in death, my story must continue," she proclaimed. The determination in her voice ignited a spark within Edward, beckoning him to carry her message to the living. "I committed suicide. I couldn't live life without Samuel. Alone in this lonely world. Suicide is not an option. Tell everyone out there. There is nothing worth taking your own life. Learn to live life to its fullest regardless of your circumstance. Too late, I understand life and death, and there is nothing I can do about it. Speak to people. Go for therapy. Don't isolate yourself for any reason." Clara said all that in pains and sorrows. In that moment, a warm light began to envelop Clara, illuminating the taxi like a halo. Edward watched in awe as the shadows around them shifted, and Clara's figure glowed with an otherworldly brilliance. "You have given me a voice," she said, her smile radiant. "Promise me you will share my story with the world." "I promise," Edward replied, his heart swelling with resolve. "Your story will be heard." As the light enveloped her completely, Clara's spirit began to fade, but not before leaving behind an undeniable sense of peace that washed over Edward. With tears in his eyes and a heart full of purpose, Edward drove away from the cemetery, the weight of Clara's story resting gently upon his shoulders. He knew he had to honor her memory by sharing her experiences with others. Each day, as he picked up new passengers, he began recounting Clara's tale, an intricate tapestry of love, loss, and the resilience of the human spirit. Weeks turned into months, and Edward found himself immersed in a new routine filled with purpose. With each passenger, he passed on Clara's message, encouraging others to embrace their stories, no matter how painful they might be. He became known as not just a taxi driver but as a storyteller, a conduit for the experiences of countless souls. In that serene moment, he closed his eyes, envisioning Clara standing beside him, adorned in her white dress, her hair flowing in the ocean breeze. "You did it," he imagined her saying, her eyes sparkling with grace. "You have shared our story." Edward smiled, feeling the warmth of her spirit wrap around him. He knew that Clara's words would continue to touch lives long after their encounter. With a new resolve, he whispered a promise to the ocean, a promise to keep sharing their story, to spread the message of love and vulnerability as far as the tides would carry it. And so he did, continuing to traverse the lively streets of Lagos, now filled with hope and purpose. Edward became a symbol of the resilience of the human spirit, ensuring that every soul encountered in his taxi would leave with a piece of Clara's story. Her legacy lived on, reminding everyone that even the ugliest of ghosts can carry the most beautiful stories, and that sometimes, the dead have something profound to say.